So today we're going to try to finish our first big adventure of Ye Olde Spider, who is a medieval superhero, so it's kind of a fantasy superhero mashup, and I hope you'll stay with us after the intro. Hi folks, and welcome to Sharp Mountain Games. Here we talk about group role-playing games, solo role-playing games, and there are plenty of actual plays in the playlist. You can check out our print and PDF products at Amazon, Lulu, Drive-Thru, and Roll20. And they're all linked below. Let's get started, and we're glad you're here. So today is the third and maybe final session for Ye Olde Spider. We'll see how that goes. But let me catch you up on the first two episodes, or the first two issues, in case you missed them. And that's totally fine. You know, I'm going to give you everything you need to know. So Ye Olde Spider is Parker Peterson, who is a medieval alchemist or apothecary, and he was bitten by a magical spider that gave him spider-like powers. And let's see what he's been up to. So he has been investigating a string of recent robberies, and he went with a friend of his, Guinevere, to meet Kent de Planay. The T is silent, who's kind of a local chronicler. And you can see I have my card here with our two main superheroes, Ye Olde Spider and Visitor, somebody who just goes by the name Visitor. I wonder if he's a strange visitor or something. And just to give you a quick overview of the system, there's 4 stats: strength, dexterity, intelligence, charisma. And then you add that number to a D20 roll. Very standard stuff. I'm doing that on purpose. This is running with Streamlined Superheroes, which is my own system that I'm getting close to get to publication point. I had somebody read over the first draft of it. There's some things I need to add to it yet and some artwork, but I'm really excited. So it runs very much like other games you played, and that's intentional. And then you have basically an effect die or a power skill die. So it kind of acts like damage, but it can also be used in certain situations. So Parker could use his alchemy to try to defuse a bomb if you need to do that, and the bomb would have a certain number of hit or hurdle points. So that's enough about the system. You don't need to worry too much about that, and I'll just keep the card here. It's a little bit off camera, but I have it where I can see it, just so that it doesn't take too much of the screen space up. I don't know how it would look up there. I guess we could put it up there if you want to take a better look at it to see how things are working. Won't hurt anything. Yeah, I think that'll be all right. So, sorry about that. They're trying something new. So, he met this Kent de Planay, and they try to triangulate some recent robberies. And he used the excuse of, he's worried about somebody robbing his apothecary shop. So, they eventually meet again as Parker finds 4 small goblins brewing explosives for pumpkin bombs, which he came into contact with earlier. So, he they were taking care of the pumpkin bombs as the Spider, and Kent de Planay changed into his alter ego, a very handsome, maybe with one black curl going down in the middle of his forehead and a cape, but he only calls himself the Visitor. So they subdued the goblins and then captured the boss, who was a silver-haired woman named Phaeriss. But she wasn't the big boss. She's working for somebody else. She's working for somebody else called the Great Goblin. And he plans to change the entire city of Sharpeton, which is where they operate out of. I think it's very near to Alnor and Fallcrest. And the Spider and Kent parley, and the Spider finds out that this new hero, again, they talk, and he finds out that he is the Visitor. Although, even our Spider says he looks a little bit like Kent, but it couldn't be the mild-mannered chronicler. So what they're going to do is they agreed to meet up again the next night. There's a fountain in the city, and they're going to meet up. But until then, they're going to try to, make some headway and see what they can find out. So let's let this be Kent, and let's see what he finds out first. Let me move the Spider over there for now. So he is going to ask around, and he is going to try to consult the local constabulary, the local Sheriff Gordon. So he is going to meet with him, and as a chronicler, they've met before. So they're meeting in the office. I'm not going to make an office. I don't think that's necessary. And he's going to ask if there was anything, unusual or any part of the city that might be of concern. And let's roll a d20 here and add his charisma. His charisma is 2. And let's see, has he met, let's give it a 50-50 chance. Has he met Sheriff Gordon before? So on a 1, 2, 3, he has. No, so they haven't met before, so I am going to require the charisma roll here. And let's see how he does. 14. So in this system, a 10 or better is always a success. If something's especially difficult, you roll with disadvantage. If something's especially easy, you roll with advantage. So that keeps things so you don't have to keep setting difficulty numbers. So 14, yeah. So he says, oh, I've heard of you, Kent, Gordon says. You know, they tell me, the other police town guardsmen tell me that you're a very trustworthy chronicler and you don't write scandalous stuff. So he said, I don't know, you know, what I can help you with. He said, well, any unusual robberies or anything like that? And Gordon goes through and he goes through his papers and he says, well, you know, there was one thing. There was somebody delivering supplies, maybe apothecary supplies or, you know, rare powders and things like that. And it was robbed somewhere near Sharpeton Cathedral. So Kent thinks about that and he says, oh, well, thank you. That helps. You know, do you have anything else? And Gordon says, well, no, not especially right now. So Kent takes his leave and he's thinking about, you know, the main cathedral, Sharpeton Cathedral. And he looks around town and it is a very high place. Now, our spider had tried to get information earlier out as Parker Peterson out of the owner of the magic shop, who was Stephen. And that really didn't seem to work. You know, there's no real reason that Stephen would trust anybody, so I'll put Stephen behind his counter here. So Parker decides he's going to have to try something different. He's not going to be able to, you know, he knows he didn't get any information out of him the last time in his alter ego. So he's going to try to come as the spider, and not necessarily to intimidate him, but just maybe it's something different. So let's see how well he's able to sneak up on Stephen, who is the magic shop owner. And that would be his dexterity. So I'm going to roll this and add 3. 18, 21, perfect. So he is silent. He comes in through a window. I have a little token for our spider. And he is observing from up top. And he's watching. And Stephen's just going about his day. He's just cleaning up his shop because it had been broken into. And then finally he reveals himself. He says, I'm sorry to sneak in like this, but I didn't know if you'd talk to me otherwise. And Stephen, of course, surprised. Whoa, what's going on here? And he hops down and he holds his hands up, you know, like in a gesture. No, I'm not here to rescue or to rob you or anything bad like that. Well, who are you and why are you here? And he says, well, just call me the spider for now. He said, but I mean well. He said, you know, don't believe what Jameston says about me, and maybe you'd hear in the reporters. And Stephen says, well, why are you here? You know, you'll be scaring people off from my shop, and I've had enough problems as it is. And our spider says, well, look, I have to implore you. Let's see how his charisma roll does here. 14. Oh, I hope I'm not getting all my high rolls statistically out of the way too early here. So he says, you know, there's a real problem with this stolen stuff, and I'm really very worried that somebody is brewing up an evil spell. I've heard reports something about maybe trying to change something. Is there anything you could tell me? And Stephen thinks about this and tells him, he says, well, you know, one thing I probably would suggest is if he's going to do this, a lot of these spells, especially evil ones, better at night. And he said he would want to be high up somewhere, you know, in order to spread the effect around. And Spider is very happy about that. He says, oh, well, thank you. I think you've really helped me. And he says, you know, and when I'm on patrol, I'll keep a special lookout on your shop from now on. So I hope you're enjoying this so far. And if you are, you know, now's a nice time to do all those YouTube kind of stuff like subscribe and all that. And also, when you're all done watching the video, if you have any comments or, you know, gentle suggestions, great. Put them down there. I do try to keep up with things. So let's get back to the story. Enough of my nonsense. So the spider waits until night he does go back as Parker Peterson and works the rest of his day in his apothecary store. His aunt is very worried about him, of course. She says, I'm concerned about your health and you being out so much with that spider at large and that angel or demon thing flying around. But of course he tells her, oh, don't worry, Aunt. I don't worry about it at all. And she says, oh, and I hope you're saving your money. I hope you're saving the money that you make here at the apothecary store. Maybe soon you'll be able to afford a dowry for that nice Guinevere. Wouldn't that be something? And he says, oh, well, don't. He's a little embarrassed and he blushes a bit. He says, oh, don't worry about that. But then he goes later on and he meets with the visitor. And again, the visitor has, almost like some kind of funny outfit and has a silvery look to it or a shiny look to it and like a maroon, dark red cape. And very handsome, muscular fellow with very slightly curly black hair with that one curl that kind of goes down the middle of his forehead. And they discuss what they found out. And Kent suspects strongly that it's going to be up at the cathedral. And the spider tells him, yeah, and I think it's going to be at night. Now, they did all this last night. So, I think he knows that people are on him. It very well may be tonight. And let's see, I'm going to say there's a 5 in 6 chance there is. So only on a 6 is it something else. 3. Okay, we're good there. Sometimes you shouldn't roll the dice because you don't know what's gonna happen. So they are looking at the cathedral now. I can't build a whole cathedral here, but they're strongly suspecting that it's going to be somewhere up on the bell tower. So let me put these down just to represent the bell tower. I can't go too high because you can see my cameras right here. I tried it with a box and it was just a little too high. So this platform here is going to represent the bell tower of the cathedral. So they are planning, what's their approach going to be? And the spider says, I actually have the advantage in that I can probably climb up pretty quietly. Maybe I'll come around from the back and you come around from the front. And I think that's their plan. So they're going to wait until, seems like it's close to midnight because he knows that's when it might happen. And we're going to have our spider start to make his ascent. 9 plus his dexterity 3, so he's fine. He is really, really quite silent. They might say, well, you haven't used any of those power skill dice yet, John. We will. We just haven't needed them because they haven't been in a stressful situation yet. Okay, so let's have them go up there. So he is going to fly up, and I don't think any roll is needed because he's not even especially trying to be stealthy. So he flies up quietly, doesn't make a lot of noise doing that, and he kind of peeks over the side. Maybe we will do a roll to see if he's really quiet in his flight. So that'll be his dexterity, I believe. What do we got there? 1920. He is very quiet, so that's great. So what he sees in the bell tower, there's a large bat, and unfortunately this bat is pretty big for our thing. And riding on the bat is a goblin fellow who might be this great goblin that they're after here. And you can see this great goblin image that I have here. So let me put that off to the side. And the great goblin is saying some incantation. And there is a kettle there. Now, I want to see if there was any possibility that anybody else was looking into this great goblin or would have heard the noise or the commotion up here. And let's see. So I'm going to say only on a 5 or 6. 2. Okay, so no, he does not have any hostages or other people involved in the mix here. I think that could be interesting also, but that's not what's going on. So Kent decides to take the direct approach. Maybe he even sees the spider on the other side here. So he is going to dash in and try to distract the goblin and the bat here. Of course, the goblin sees him and he says, You, that thing that's been flying around. You can't disrupt me. I'm almost there. All right, so let's roll to see initiative here. And then on a 1, 2, 3, Kent's going to go first. On 4, 5, 6, the goblin. 1, Kent gets to go first. So I think he's going to go after the goblin. And let's see what he has. He has his super strength. So he is going to just come in as, swoop in as best he can and just, take a haymaker, take a real swing at him. So he's going to roll a d20, and if he hits, it's a d12 for the effect. So I may as well just roll them all at once here and see how he does. 20, and now I don't do criticals. I know criticals are nice, but can be a bit much. So he does 5 points here against the goblin. And he gets knocked back. And while this is going on, the spider is going to try and go in and see what he can do with the cauldron there. So let's see what we'll do. Seems like they're going first, and then we'll have the goblin and the bat go. So spider is going to try to use his alchemy knowledge, which is a d6, and he'll get to add his intelligence, which is a +1. Let me put him down the dice tower here. 12, so that's good enough because it's with 13 total. And 4. So using his alchemy knowledge, he is trying to disrupt what's going on here, this spell. Now, he's not able, he's just spending this round analyzing it and seeing what's going on. He's not going to fully be able to shut it down. I'm going to assume that the goblin had some other alchemy stuff going on here. So maybe there's some other powders or things, he could throw in, like throwing in baking soda to neutralize it or stuff. Okay, so our goblin is definitely going to throw one of those pumpkin bombs at Kent, and then I'm going to see if he notices the spider. So let's have him do the pumpkin bomb at Kent here, and that is a d12, I believe. He gets +3 because he's a pretty robust bad guy. 9, okay, so he misses. And does he notice what's going on here? We'll say 50-50 shot. On a 4, 5, 6, he does. No. So he does not notice the spider working away here. But we're going to give the bat an attack also. That bat is swooping around, and he is also going to attack at Kent. 7 + 3 is 10. Yeah. So Kent takes 4 points of damage there. All right. And let's check what's going on there. So he's down to 16. Our spider is okay so far. Is it 20? And let's see what's going on here now. So we'll take care of Kent first. So again, he's going after the goblin rather than the bat. Maybe he's going to step back a bit and try and hit him with his eye beams. That's a D8. So let's see where the D8 is. It doesn't do quite as much damage as the punch, but he took a little damage. Maybe he's trying to, and maybe also not just so much out of fear, but he's trying to still, move back and distract the goblin here from what's going on. 11 for 3, so that's 3 against the goblin. Okay, let's see how our spider does now, trying to defuse that bomb, or not really a bomb, but it's like I said, this is like a kettle, and I just happen to have a little lid here that worked pretty well. Trying to stop this chemical process. So he does have to roll his d6 for his alchemy, his power skill dice. No. So he says, I'm having some troubles here. Now, let's see what the goblin does. Now he notices. Maybe our spider shouldn't have spoken up. He's going to try and lob a pumpkin bomb at Kent there. Hits Kent for 4 more points of damage. He is going to lob one at the spider. Yeah, it definitely hits. So, that pumpkin bomb goes off there. And his bat creature, now the bat creature is kind of fixated on the visitor. Kent, the visitor, although he's in his super suit. And he is going to try a bite at him. I believe that's a D6. Yeah, that's a D6. He's +2. So, no, he misses. The bat misses. I think everybody has gone this round. Okay, so let's have Kent go first. Again, that goblin is pretty tough. So he's going to, again, try and just swoop in and hit at him. He realizes that he can't make any more distractions, or that's not really helping matters. And that's a D12 for his super strength. So he might be able to really do some... Oh, a 20. Very nice. And 7 damage. So the goblin gets knocked back quite a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have little boxes on my index cards here. Now, let's see if our spider how he can do here with trying to stop that chemical reaction. And he only has so many rounds to do this. So let's hope for a good roll here. 10. Okay. That is good because, like I said, he only had so many rounds to take care of this. So 4, he is able to stop the chemical reaction. This he was worried it was going to change people. No, cries the goblin. And he turns his rage a bit towards the spider. So he is going to try and lob 2 things at the spider. And I'll just roll 2 dice at once. I'll worry about damage in a second. 12 and 15. They both hit. 8 points of damage. Oops, and it has to go through the thing to count. And 2 more, so that's 10 points of damage. So he knocks our spider way, way back here. And his bat character, his flying bat, that'll bite at Kent, the visitor. Nope, misses. I think that's the second time the bat's missed here this round. So Kent says, we're going to try to put an end to this. He comes in again just with that super strength haymaker of his, the right hook. $12 and 7. 7 points. That knocks our goblin down and off. So he is knocked out. And in fact, I'm going to ask him to make a dexterity check. I don't think it's unreasonable to make that check. I mean, they're up here. They're in this bell tower. Well, let's see. Let's see if he needs to. 50% chance. 1, 2, 3, he needs to. What did I get? 5. Nope. Okay, so he doesn't need to. He's still safely on the edge of this church tower here, of the Sharpeton Cathedral. All right, so let's see who went. So he went. So our spider is going to try to... he's going to try to ensnare the bat here, to at least bother it and maybe get it to go away. So his ensnare is a D10. So he has some kind of alchemical webbing that he's mixed up. He's not trying to harm the bat. And this is an actual real bat. This isn't like a glider or a construct or anything. Let's see how he does. So we're using his dexterity because it's a ranged attack. So that hits. But only 2 here. So the bat isn't really out of the picture yet. And let's see who the bat's going to attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see who the bat attacks. 4, 5, 6. It attacks the spider. And let's hope he misses, because spider's in a bad way here. 10. He does not miss. Spider is out of the picture. He is damaged so much, teetering towards the edge here. Let's see if he falls. 1, 2, 3, he falls. 50% chance. Nope. 5. Okay, so he lands. Couldn't knock anybody off the cathedral today. And that leaves the visitor to try to take care of this bat here. So he's just going to give a good slug at it. He's trying to knock it out or knock it away. He is not trying to slaughter the thing. They are superheroes. Okay, 19. That's pretty good. What's our effect here? 10. Oh, that's more than enough. So the bat reels and is knocked out. So we're out of combat now, and our spider takes some time, and he, really makes sure that this concoction is totally tamped down. That's why it's always good to have a chemist around, I suppose. Let me give him a roll on his alchemy. I want to see if he can figure out what it was supposed to do. And I have some idea that has to do with change, so I think I'm going to give him advantage on that. So 10 or 9 or better, because we're going to add his intelligence. Oh, we're fine. We're fine on both of them. He is able to figure out, and he tells the visitor, he says, this was bad. This would have, anybody who come in contact with this vapor would have been changed into a goblin, much like that small flying goblin that I dealt with a few nights ago. And the visitor says, oh well, and it's good that we wrapped all this up. So they tie everybody up here, and he says, I'm going to fly them down to police, but we have to see who's underneath here, if this really is a goblin. So he investigates the goblin, and he sees that it's a mask, and he pulls it off. So it's nothing violent. He's not doing any harm to him. But he removes this, this mask, and underneath, Kent recognizes him, and no roll needed. Kent would have been the chronicler. And he says to the spider, he says, it's Lord Norman. And I always knew he was very odd here. But, I don't know what the problem is. So he's going to take care of them. Now, our spider was knocked out. In fact, maybe I shouldn't have even allowed him to make his alchemical roll. So he would not have been able to participate in the combat anymore. So he is going to limp down the cathedral stairs here, taking it real slowly. He took it pretty hard. But later that evening, they go back to that fountain. Let me get rid of some things here just to make a little bit of room. And you may remember I made a fountain. There was a statue in the middle of the fountain last time. Let's see. That's why these dominoes are nice. I don't have to have anything special or made up. And there's our fountain. So this is where he met with the visitor before. So I think they're going to meet there again later and sit. And he's trying to catch his breath. And the visitor says, you did so well. You really took a beating, but that showed certain courage and bravery, is what the visitor says. And the spider just says, thank you, but I hope we don't have to deal with crazy people, dressed like animals and things like that anytime soon. And visitor says, well, it's funny that you mentioned that. He says, not so much as we were fighting, but on the way over here, I was thinking, as I turned them into the constables and all, we made a pretty good team. I wouldn't have been able to do all that alchemy, he said, but, again, maybe I have more of the raw strength. He says, we should do this again sometime. We should team up, perhaps. And Spy says, well, I don't know. I'm kind of new to all this. He says, yeah, but as a group, we'd be much stronger. Maybe we could form some kind of league, or maybe even some sort of avenging force. I've heard of other heroes. I've heard there's some bat character over in Fallcrest, and I've heard about some others as well. Maybe, someone who dresses like a devil, and another bat creature or person that I've heard of. He said, if we could get them together, or some, a female paladin or something that I've heard of, boy, wouldn't that be great? And the spider says, well, maybe, I certainly don't want to write anything off. I do this to try to help people, and I know you do too. So he thinks about it some more, and he says, a league or an avenging force, he says, boy, that would be really great. That would even be fantastic. And I think we'll leave it there for today. This episode, a little bit shorter maybe than some of the others because it was the wrap-up. Again, please, if you have a few minutes and you want to let me know in the comments what you liked or any gentle suggestions for improvement, that's great. And we will be back with more videos, more solo play videos real soon. In the meantime, go have your own fun. Go run your own solo game or group game if you have some friends to do it. If not, run it solo and still have a good time, and we'll see you next time.